Hello, all you big, beautiful brains out there. Today, we're going to talk about learning disabilities. Before we get started, take a minute to subscribe to Psy vs. Psy. Help out your friendly neighborhood psychologist while I tell you all about some of the major types of learning disabilities. Contrary to what the name would imply, those with learning disabilities absolutely can and do learn. There is actually a lot of data out there that suggest those with some of the conditions that we're going to talk about today might have a higher general intelligence score than those without these conditions. Learning disabilities are not intellectual disabilities. Learning disabilities, or as they're starting to be called, learning processing variations, affect the way someone learns material, not whether or not they can learn it. Today, we're going to talk about 4 different neurological conditions that can impact the way that you learn. The first, and the one everybody has heard of, dyslexia. The first thing to know about dyslexia is that there isn't just one kind. Instead, dyslexia is a blanket medical term that is used to describe a lot of different variations. That means that each individual person that you meet who has dyslexia might not have the exact same variation or need help in the same way. Dyslexia is language-based, not comprehension-based. And one of the most common symptoms of people with dyslexia is that they have difficulty reading written words. Dyslexia usually comes from differences in the parts of your brain that process language, and it's highly heritable. You are far more likely to have dyslexia if your parents or your younger siblings or other biological relatives also have dyslexia. On the flip side of that coin is dysgraphia. People with dyslexia have trouble reading, writing. People with dysgraphia have trouble writing things down. Writing requires an intensive set of fine motor skills and information processing skills. Dysgraphia can be caused by a nervous system problem that affects your fine motor skills. Interestingly, even though they logically seem to be related, there doesn't seem to be a strong relationship between those that have dyslexia and those that have dysgraphia. In fact, dysgraphia is far more likely to be found in someone who also has a condition such as autism, Tourette syndrome, or ADHD. The next one we're going to look at is dyscalculia. Dyscalculia is mathematics-based. Some of the most common symptoms include trouble counting, trouble telling time, or difficulty with the concept of money, like numbers. It can also affect concepts like the sequencing of events. When people with dyscalculia have to put things in order of first, next, then last, it can be an extremely difficult task. You can have dyslexia and dyscalculia at the same time. After all, numbers are something that can also be written down, and dyslexia affects written things. But what makes dyscalculia different is that it affects mathematical concepts, like making sense of graphs or charts, or concepts like greater than or less than. The last variation we're going to talk about is dyspraxia, or as it's also called, developmental coordination disorder. Dyspraxia affects someone's ability to plan and process motor tasks. So, you'll often see delays in motor tasks like learning to tie your shoes or learning to drive. One of the hallmark characteristics of dyspraxia is clumsiness, and that's in both fine and gross motor skills. So that means you're just as likely to have noticeable differences in things involving gross motor skills, like sports, and in things with fine motor skills, like drawing. Keep in mind, if you're identifying with any of the traits I've mentioned, it doesn't necessarily mean you learn differently. A lot of people are clumsy, or have trouble with math, or are slow readers. These are all conditions that need to be diagnosed medically. That being said, if you're one of our more mature viewers and you find yourself identifying strongly with one of the conditions, I'd strongly recommend that you do seek out help or a diagnosis. We have learned so much about all of these conditions just in the past 10 years, and the simple fact is, Teachers and parents and doctors just didn't even know to look for these conditions even a decade ago. If you want to find out more about where your intelligence comes from, make sure you subscribe to Psy vs. Psy so you can get all of our other videos and you can learn all about the science of psychology. Until next time, keep thinking, and I'll see y'all later. Bye. We've been making videos every day for almost a month now and sending them out into the cosmic void of YouTube. Hello? Is anybody out there?